Oh, you absolute job. Oh, Christ. This is not how I hoped I'd be looking. Oh, that's disgusting. Hello and welcome. That is annoying. Like, why is this? Good afternoon. The clap is back. Need to stop saying that because that just doesn't do me any favours whatsoever. Also, don't have that definitely. Good morning. It's not the morning. It's far from the morning. It's 2 o'clock. Good afternoon. Wow. Okay, so today I thought I would just talk about something that I spoke about in a previous video. It's more about being a bit more precise on like points. Wow, I haven't even explained what it is. That's good. So today I want to be going back through when I was inpatient, and I have done a video on this before, and it was discussing pretty much like from beginning to end, and that's, I think it's one of my first videos actually that I did, but this one's going to be a bit more concise into terms of like the good things from it and also like the bad things, and to be honest it's mostly going to be about the bad things because definitely I can't. Okay, we're just going to get to an opinion at the end. I feel like it's good to talk this stuff through and then we can decide at the end, like, let's take a vote. Was it good? Was it not? Difficult to say because, you know, but so yeah, if you want to see like my full like from beginning to end of my inpatient experience, it's in a previous video, which I will link below, or you can have a shuffle through because let's be honest, there's not very many videos at the moment. And this one's just gonna be talking, kind of pinpointing some specific areas in treatment that are given to patients, but also looking at ways or areas which could be improved, which in my experience is a lot, but obviously this cannot be just a general, it cannot be applied generally, shall we say, purely because hello? It's just Google or someone, not someone. But yeah, this can't be just applied to like all treatment facilities because the quality in treatment and services is very different across the board, and it'll be really good to sort of get your guys' opinions, but also your guys' experience. Your guys'? Is that proper English? I would like to get to know, what am I saying? It will be good to know each other's experiences, even if you don't necessarily have to go into detail as such if you don't want to, but I feel like if there's certain areas that you thought were either really beneficial to you, not that beneficial at all, and areas for improvement, it would be really handy to sort of see the areas that may be undermined in treatment, but also highlighting like what is beneficial, because this is how we're going to help develop something, and a treatment and a plan of action to help better recovery and prevent relapse as much as we can. But yeah, so comment in the comments below, message in the comments below, what do you say? Leave a comment below, and I will obviously have a look through every one of them. Don't know why I have to say that. Yeah, leave a comment below about your experience if you want to. Like I said, this is open for discussion, and if it's a personal experience and you don't want to share it, completely fair enough, but there may be areas that you feel like are strongly need to be recognised or improved upon, or shout from the rooftops because it was so good. So that's what I'm going to do. But yeah, this is my experience, and like I said, it's not going to be, it can't be a generalised thing, but I feel like we'll get into it and then we'll see what you think. Okay, so just for a quick sort of overview, is that I basically went in to treatment 2 weeks before my 18th birthday, and as you may not know that when you turn 18, obviously you're classed as an adult, and so you basically get to choose if you go into treatment or not after that, whereas before that is sort of to some degree out of your hands, although I voluntarily went in the end. It was something that my parents had more of control of than I did. So yeah, so I went in 2 weeks before my 18th birthday. That was when was available in terms of bed spaces, which can be a massive issue in itself in regards to getting people help and treatment. I was very lucky that it just so happened a bed became immediately available, and it was literally that night, that day, that I just went straight there, and that's when I started. So 17 at the time, and I'd just gone back from a holiday from Turkey, which was, I went there for like, I think maybe 2 days because I was not well at all. And I did a video about that as well, and that experience, because that was horrific and really, really stupid of me to go. But my mindset, as some of you may know, that when you're in the midst of this eating disorder, you're going to the ultimate risk of anything. Nothing really feels like a risk anymore, in a sense. It's just sort of like you don't even think about the consequences of anything around you or to yourself and things like that. So yeah, horrible time, awful. So if you want to go have a look at that and watch me, I think I cry a million times in it, but horrific. And I hope people can learn from that. And if you guys want me to kind of do another video on that again, because the quality wasn't that great that time, and I think I was just a massive emotional wreck. So if you want me to be more stable in my video, then I'll happily do another one and sort of discuss points along the way, because I sort of told the story, but it might be good to highlight some areas and where I feel like I can recognise them differently now. So if you want that, let me know. So yeah, immediately got there. So I think I arrived at like 9-10, so I'd already like missed evening snack, but he gave me one to have before bed, and I was like, sure, go ahead, and sort of start my journey then. So I got up in the morning, so they had all like discussing about my treatment plan. I got a list of like all of the meals that you were going to have. There was a selection that you could choose from, and you could decide what you'd like. So it kind of gave you that option, which is quite nice. And it also gave you 3 dislikes. So if there was something that was in a meal and it was offered and you said that you didn't like it, you didn't have to have it, you just obviously have something else. So stupidly I chose ones, well actually I say stupidly, but like obviously at the time I think I was thinking stupidly, but I pretty much my dislikes weren't even on the menu, and so that was really good. I think I chose sausages, banana, absolute no-go, and maybe bacon. And it's funny because I think it was not so much the case that I didn't like them. I think it was just like my ultimate fear food, except banana, absolutely no-go, no thank you, no. Banoffee pie though, weird, like that. Anyway, so yeah, we got to choose that and that was all fine. Ticked everything that I wanted, yada yada yada. And then you have they have like a kind of stages, or where they've put you at in your treatment plan. So there's different meal plans, and I was supposed to be on, I believe it was the first meal plan, so meal plan 1, which basically gives you a specific caloric target to get in the day. Not that you necessarily have choice over that in the sense of like, I can't remember if he told me how many calories I was aiming for, but anyway, that different meal plans target different amounts of calories, so sort of like easing me into eating more, and sort of the refeeding process. And I definitely think we need to discuss about refeeding, because I think it's super important in terms of the aspects of it, of physical recovery as well as mental recovery. So if you want to see something about refeeding, I'll happily do a video about that, because it'll be really interesting for me to look at too, because it's an area that actually I should be looking at. So yeah, my meal plan was like, so for breakfast I was supposed to have, it was like a bowl of cereal with milk, a drink on the side, I think it was like orange juice or something, and 1 piece of toast, and that was my breakfast, with like jam on or Marmite, whatever spread it was. But literally day 1, got up and I had my breakfast, and they gave me a bowl of cereal, the milk, the drink, and 2 pieces of toast and the jam. And it wasn't until after, like, this is another thing, this is an issue too, of what they tell you as well not to do. I'm crossing over now. But yeah, so after I'd had my meal, I was talking to this girl who I'd met there, lovely girl, and she asked me what they gave me, and she said that's not meal plan 1, that's like the next level up, because meal plan 1 is only 1 piece of toast. And that for me was a massive trigger straight away, because it was like they've given me too much already and I didn't feel like, almost like I was being looked after properly, and it just triggered such an anxious approach to everything, because it was like, this is my first day and already I feel like I'm being tripped up by things like this. The one thing that I'd sort of just want to highlight here quickly as well is that they encourage you like not to make friends there. And I mean, take that how you will. Like, I can understand, because they go from the point of copying behaviours and comparing notes, and obviously when she told me about how much I'd eaten, it was almost like obviously not very good for my mindset, and kind of derailed me a bit. So you can sort of see where you can understand where they come from that perspective, but also going through something like that alone is really difficult, and especially in that environment. And it felt like literally everyone was almost walking around like ghosts and had like no physical spirit or anything, and it was really sad. And that in itself, feeling more alone and isolating yourself further, is really hard. So there has to be a balance of in between, where you do get that social interaction, and also like not forgetting that people are actually themselves too. Like that was one thing that's really gets me sort of upset and angry in this whole thing, which is really hard to sort of manage again, because you can understand why people do it, but people associate everything to your eating disorder, and they think that everything that you think is to do with your eating disorder, when actually you do still have a brain in there, and you're just having an opinion that isn't actually relevant to your eating disorder. And this is also something that came along the way, which is another point that we'll be discussing. So yeah, so yeah, that was that. So that was not the ideal start. So most of our days with Bill were just like literally lounging around. You weren't allowed to, well, for the first few days, I wasn't allowed to move. I had to literally just sit on the sofa the whole time. I think I was playing Sims. Obviously no internet access, and they had our phones, but then you could like request to go get them from the office and have them in the day. But pretty much the same thing day in, day out, in terms of just sitting around, which in itself isn't ideal, but they're trying to obviously limit as much calorie burn as possible. Oh, I mean, I was quite a good patient in a sense, if you can call it that, in that I did sort of just like get on with what I was told to do, eat the foods that I was given, and sort of just try my best to just focus on that goal. Although I was there was one obviously major downfall in what I was doing, and it was exercising in the evenings. Obviously you weren't allowed to exercise, but I was going up to my bedroom a little bit early, so I think like going upstairs to bed was maybe like 8:30, I want to say, something around that time. But I'd go up at like 7:30 to have a shower. Obviously I would have a shower, but I would have the shower on and I'd be exercising in the bathroom. And where my room was a bigger room, I obviously had more space, so I would just be doing exercises in the bathroom, even though there were people outside your doors, like walking the hallway and stuff, and making sure, checking that you didn't have your phone as well, because you weren't allowed it at night. Yeah, I think maybe they just thought because I was getting on with things, they didn't have to watch me as closely, and maybe I subconsciously knew that in my mind, so I was kind of like, can I get away with this? And it wasn't to like, now thinking about it, I don't know if that's like I knew that or not, like, but I think where especially for the first couple of days where I had been obviously in the refeeding process, my tummy felt so bloated and so full, and I was, is it PDA? Well, a bit graphic here, but I was like extremely constipated, most likely because obviously I hadn't been eating very well for a very, very long time, and my body was obviously not used to that amount of food digesting, and just my whole metabolic function and things like that had not been great for a while, so no surprise. But I just felt awful and my body image was awful. And when I did like a side-by-side comparison, so I took a picture of like at the start of treatment and then nearing the end, and seeing the difference, and there's really not a substantial difference, and I don't think I gained a lot being in there. And whether that's partially to do with my exercise component in there, possibly, and maybe 2 weeks wasn't long enough. There's loads of different factors that may have influences as well. I'm not really sure about that. I'm gonna have to sort of dive into that a little bit more with myself, because it's an interesting sort of way that I'm thinking about it now. Yeah, so like obviously I understand to a degree that there's nothing they can really do in terms of like monitoring that. Like you did have a set time that you'd have to have a shower, like you could literally only have like maybe like a 10-minute shower. There was definitely a time frame on it, but clearly I was not being monitored very well. But I don't know, that sometimes there comes like, I think there's an issue as well with like information being transitioned over to when carers and nurses and things like that change shifts and where people are at, and if people know the profile of all their patients. And I think that's an issue because consistency is so key in this, and when that sort of falls off, I know how people have different approaches to how they interact with people and things like that, but that can also be a massive issue because there's sort of, when in the midst of an eating disorder, you'll do anything to sort of justify what you're doing, or you'll hold on to things that make you like make bad things happen, essentially. That's probably a really bad way of saying it, but you'll hold on to something that someone said and be like, well, they said I could do this, so where are you going with that? And also I was told that I obviously wasn't allowed to exercise, and that would be reevaluated depending on my progress over the next week or so, which wasn't really monitored that well. I think I was going in the, I think I was within like on the third day, I was in the basketball, like the, they have like a little like leisure centre area, and I was in there playing basketball. Even if it was for 10 minutes, I was still in there for 10 minutes shooting hoops and not really doing what I should be doing, essentially. And of course, when you're in that mindset, you're going to be doing things that you shouldn't be doing, or knowing that you shouldn't be doing things, but you're going to do them because you're going to take any opportunity you can, but not in an intentional, it's the eating disorder making you do these things. As much as you want to recover, like I said, like I'd been doing really good on like the eating part, but obviously there's still a massive issue going on. So yeah, that wasn't very well monitored. This is where sort of my approach of exercise and education comes in as well. And it may not obviously necessarily be ideal then, purely because brain function is going to be inhibited if you have restricted eating. And that's something that I'll get into a separate video. But yeah, obviously my mindset wasn't ideal to sort of be able to take on board more new information, or like be able to even be like, okay, that's fine, but I'm still going to do that anyway, sort of thing. But that's why I want to discuss about where we put in exercise education into recovery, because that was something that I definitely wasn't helped with after my treatment, and it hindered me a lot. And actually I got worse after treatment, but we'll dive into that at the end of the video. So yeah, so kind of doing well throughout the like days and stuff, and there were like activities that we did, but another point that came up was there was one meal time, and like I said, because I'd been doing really well with my eating and things, and I had a new guy sitting with me for I think it was for dinner. No, sorry, it was for lunch, because I felt sick like the whole day. So yeah, we have to have someone sit with us every meal, make sure that we're not like hiding food, not eating food and things like that, or fidgeting, because that is not allowed. But I had this man sitting with me, and it got to my pudding for my lunch, and it was rice pudding and it had cinnamon on top, and I just cannot tolerate cinnamon. Like, it was actually making me gag at the table. I was sitting there like almost being physically ill, and I was really struggling to finish it. Like, I think I had about 3/4 left. I was like, oh, yeah, I can't, it's actually making me feel very, very sick. And I said, like, they were obviously noticing I was slowing down, because you do have a set time frame that you have to eat your food in. And they were saying to me, come on, keep going. And I said, I'm really sorry, but I really can't. And I was literally on the verge of tears. And I was like, I can't eat it purely because the cinnamon is really making me feel sick. I was like, I said to them, I will happily have whatever else is being offered. I just really cannot eat this because it's making me so ill. And he was like, his response was, well, we've all got to do things in life that we don't want to do. And just being in that vulnerable position to be like, I'm really trying to actually do this, and I've said to you that I will eat something else. And I think this is where the line between like disassociating everything to the person in regards to their eating disorder, and actually how they're genuinely feeling, and I was just like, please, like, I will have something else. And he was not having it. And I understand you have to instill that to be like, just eat, and like for recovery. So I understand to a degree, but also I was like, in my head I was like, well, what's worse? They want me to go and throw up in the bathroom because, like, not intentionally, but like it's just happening because I cannot swallow cinnamon. So they'd rather me be sick and then what I'm gonna have to eat again, or I've lost calories from doing that. It's a lose-lose situation. And literally the whole day I felt so sick and so upset and just so sick and tired of recovery. I was just like, you know what, this is actual bullshit, because I'm not actually being listened to. They're associating everything to my eating disorder, and I haven't got a leg to stand on here, and no one is actually listening to me. Which brings me on to my next point, which actually probably hindered this even more, because this was outrageous. And I actually think this is one of the like key points, like, which really kind of puts me off everything about what I was doing. Remember that anorexia is a mental health disorder. So let's just put that in there, like, mental health disorder. This is what it is, okay? So you get a time where you can go and see the psychologist who talks to you about the goings on and assesses you, and basically is supposed to be an opportunity to try and dive into what's causing this and how we can improve this and all them good things. Anyway, my turn it was, and I think they decided to book me in maybe like 20 minutes before lunch, so off to a really good start already. And so talking to the psychologist, they didn't really seem that interested anyway. Very much not really listening to my responses, started talking over me as I was sort of diving into it. And then she asked me a question and I was sort of driving into the roots of things and like getting upset. Obviously I was very upset and trying to like talk it out, what was going on in my mind and what I was thinking. And literally mid-flow of whatever I was coming out with was cut me right off, looked at the clock and went, oh, it's time for you to go to lunch. And I just didn't, no, like, obviously I fully appreciate that there are time schedules and that is important in terms of like making sure that we are eating, but do not book me in 20 minutes before lunch when you know this is going to take longer than 20 minutes. And she didn't even say, we're going to pick this up as soon as you finished your meal, let's have a chat again. Nah, dead cut, nothing. That was the end of it. Don't know what she wrote on her pad, probably nothing. Actually, I think it was all wrong. And this is such a, I think I just felt shit the rest of the day, because I was just like, well, I'm not being listened to, am I? They don't give a shit. They're not even remotely interested in helping me. And I just felt so shit about it and just low. And it was just, I don't understand why you would offer such a service if the quality of it is not going to be enough, or like even thinking that you like can. It's such a fragile thing, because then I feel like it makes you close off even more. And I was sort of like, well, am I now just going to eat to get out and that's what it's going to be? And to a degree I genuinely think that's what happened, but there was no actual care for my mental well-being and figuring that out. So I felt completely just like fell by the wayside, and I was just sort of there. And I think that pattern sort of carried on out, because after that, pretty much not being monitored, I was doing what I wanted every day, pretty much. No regimency in terms of making sure I wasn't exercising or like walking around too much. That had all just sort of gone out the window. And then when it came to my evaluation at the end of treatment, they decided to tell me then, or the psychologist was sitting in and whoever else had been looking after me and stuff, and then she started saying stuff that just wasn't even remotely true, and they were like, we want to keep you in for another week. And I was fighting the fact of like, well, what is the point? Because they were like, you've put on weight but not enough to what we would have liked to have seen over the last 2 weeks. Well, I was just crying the whole time, so I literally don't want to be here. And obviously no one really wants to be there in the sense of like, you want to get better, of course, like trying to help yourself, but also realistically you don't want to be there. So I was getting upset about it. Anyway, we sort of decided at the end that I would do day visit. So I'd do a week, but I wouldn't stay over. So that was sort of the plan. So the following week comes, and they didn't even realise I was going to be there. So think of that what you will, because that was interesting. Then again, so I just thought it was like they just put me there. As soon as I walked in, they were like, oh, you're here. Yeah. Trying to bet myself and coming all this way and trying to like help myself out, and you have nothing for me. I think it was just such a, oh, you've done your 2 weeks, so that's it. There was no help whatsoever. There was no follow-on plan. And it just like, I think I went for a day. I think I did a day there, and I rang my mum and I was like, they don't even know I'm supposed to be here. Bearing in mind we just had a conversation like 2 days ago about where, you know, that I'm supposed to be here for another week, and I had nothing. And it is almost like they were guessing my meals, and it wasn't the meals that I said, and it was just like, you were just kind of putting up with me, and I was just like, this is shit, I'm out. So I didn't go back after that. I was just like, nope. So yeah, no plan of action for afterwards. It was sort of like left to my own devices, and nothing. There was no help in place of where to go and what to do. Absolutely nothing. Regardless of whether I was 18 or not, I think that's absolutely appalling, because bearing in mind that I'd lived with this condition for how many years would it have been? About 5 years. And you're telling me a 2 week stay is going to improve or change my life forever, in the sense of getting rid of this disorder or reducing it to the minimum that it could possibly be, or whatever, making any significant change in my life, you're going to tell me that that's going to happen within those 2 weeks. Well, I'll wait for you to tell me, because that's ridiculous. So actually, when I came out of hospital, I actually got to my lowest weight ever, mentally as well, my lowest. And again, I was just back into, I was compensating for the time that I'd lost exercising and things when I was in hospital, restricting more than ever, going back to my old ways, and I was just really not well at all. And I don't know what like clicked in me that was like, you gotta start doing your shit and getting it together. But obviously I'm at a different point now, which is amazing. But I think it's so important to see that like how I massively regressed even further. Am I actually gonna die? And I was trying so hard afterwards to sort of stick to sort of what they said. It was very generic in terms of, when I say like, I had no like plan afterwards, I mean it's like minimally the tiniest bit of a lie, because they gave me, or they just told me to stick to the meal plan, what was given in treatment. And that was it, and that was even wrong from the get-go, so that's a really good piece of advice, thank you. That sounds really obnoxious, but I think just thinking back and how much these things, it's almost pointless going in a sense, you feel, because you can't have these like things falling at the last hurdle. You need that consistent and effective, well, it's hard to say effective, obviously it's very hard to generalize this type of thing and what works for people and what doesn't, and that varies greatly, as we can see, but it just, yeah, it's upsetting to see that this is sort of the treatment that's available, not necessarily everywhere like I said, but how much that actually could have been even more detrimental than it actually was. So yeah, I don't mean to sound like really rude, but yeah, it pisses me off a bit. So yeah, I was like trying really hard to stick to the meal plans and like I was trying really hard, like when I went out it was like hitting calories, and that was sort of like what was instilled, like, right, well I have to hit these calories because this is what I was eating in there, and trying to be regimented following that through. And that got into so many arguments with my parents because I was trying to, well, not to go over that amount and just worrying about doing everything perfectly and everything right. And it's funny how like I always want to do things right, but I was doing everything so wrong. So massive contradiction and irony and everything. So yeah, that caused a lot of arguments, but I was just trying to help myself as much as I could, the best way that I thought was available to me. So I'm going to just recap on what I said in terms of like the points, because I feel like I went off on a massive tangent and was just getting angry at life. So first thing was meal plan being wrong from the get-go. Not ideal. And partly in that, not really correcting it either. Being a bit willy-nilly, which is not ideal for the mindset of an anorexic. Number two, the rice pudding incident, and kind of juggling people's approaches and the disassociation of oneself, actual self, to their actual eating disorder, and not giving that chance for someone to help themselves in that sense and still do things of what is expected of them, but not being able to do it because people will let you. That was really poorly explained, but I hope that makes sense. Just in the sense of like, I was wanting to still compensate, or having just an alternative to what I was having, but not being allowed that because apparently, you know, we've all got to do things in life that we don't want to do. Number three, which fully outrages me, was the psychologist. And like I said, this is a mental health disorder, yet the mental health side of things was really not being looked after. And I'm just gonna put that aside, and I can talk about that in another video because enragement, and no, I just can't think of anything good to say about it. I think it's genuinely put me off, like, speaking about it to people. There was one lady though that it was really good. She was really good, and actually I'm going to make a separate video for her because she was great, and her name was Denise, and she was like the approach of like cruel to be kind. She wasn't beating around the bush. She was just straight to the point. Savage, absolutely savage as hell, but you know what? I fully thank her for my recovery massively. But that's another video. We're going to get to that a little bit later because that's emotion. Number four, I want to say is the I've done this in really wrong order, but I'm just going to make the points and then we can diverge. This is not going as well as I thought. So number four was, or it's going to be now, is just overall monitoring of my whereabouts and what I'm doing and exercise activity and things like that. I understand that there's only a degree that you can be wary of someone, but also when you're in somewhere like that, and there wasn't that many of us in there at the time, the ratio between like staff and patients, I felt like it could have been dealt with a lot better. Do not get me wrong though, some of the staff are absolutely lovely and really nice, like good people and lovely, like to get on with, but I feel like the knowledge of what is required for someone with an eating disorder was not, the facility wasn't, I don't think, as well equipped as it could have been. And I think this is why it's so important that we do this in education too, teaching this side of things and having this as more of something that people should be learning about and knowing about as well. And even on my like university course, I did clinical exercise physiology, and also, sorry, in my undergrad I did fitness and personal training, but it always seemed to be that it was always a discussion of obesity and that sort of side of the spectrum, and maybe like a slide on eating disorders or anorexia, but never ever seen as bad as being obese. And I feel like actually a really good example of what portrayed both sides of the coin was the program Super Size versus Super Skinny, because it looks at both sides of the spectrum and how both are equally as detrimental to health, and something that should be more discussed alongside obesity as well. So yeah, just like the education purposes side of that, where I was like, why have I gone off track? What was I talking about? Yes, I feel like the education of the disorder is much more needed, or individuals who do have that knowledge or want to learn about it, because I feel like it can help better those who are struggling, and be more relatable in that sense, but also having the disciplinary side, and how the mind works, and appreciating that a lot more than just sort of being nice, because in this situation being nice and being lovely isn't necessarily going to benefit whoever's in the patient that's in treatment. But obviously it's really nice to have nice staff, because then it does make you feel good in some ways, but also there needs to be a degree of that in there. And then number 5 is just the follow-up treatment plan, because one, like I said, very minimally they gave me the advice of following my plan that I had in treatment, and that's obviously not enough. And just the management of post-treatment service. I don't know, because this is only one place, I can't generalise my experience to everyone's, as other places may have had that, but I just haven't. And this is why I think it would be really useful if any of you could comment below in terms of your experience and where it was, and we can help we can just analyse the whole situation and see what's being offered and how your recovery was from that, and just open this up a bit more, because I feel like, yeah, my treatment probably is a lot different to somebody else's. And if you've been there for a longer period of time, you know, there's all different factors. But yeah, there was I wouldn't, based on my experience, I wouldn't recommend my treatment centre and where I got help, because I don't know actually whether it helped me or hindered me. And I was trying to better myself, but that bettering of myself wasn't consistent because of the treatment that I was given. And it gives you a lot of self-doubt into whether kind of recovery is worth it, and whether it's even possible. And I think that's what's so important when we sort of look at treatment too. It's a roller coaster or a ride anyway, regardless, but like I said, I got worse when I came out, and that's not necessarily an uncommon thing, but we don't want it to be a common thing either. We want to reduce that, but yeah, just for me it was just not ideal, and my journey is very different to everybody, like not everybody else's. Well, yeah, everybody's is different, but so I sort of had that mindset. I just had that moment where I was just like, fuck this, I'm gonna do what I gotta do to get better, and that's where I incorporated going to the gym and lifting weights into my recovery. And I think this is what I've got to decipher too, though, in terms of my weight management and my mindset, and what internally was going on neurologically, and being able to implement exercise, because it may have been that even gaining that amount of weight in recovery was enough to change my mind that going to the gym and exercising was going to be more beneficial compared to doing it before, if that makes sense. But also because I regressed when I came out, finding when it was okay to and when it's not okay to. And I think the problem with that as well is that although this was a discovery period for myself, I was motivated by other things, like I had to take a gap year, obviously because I wasn't very well, and maybe that's what sort of spurred me on to be like, I've got to get myself together. So it's difficult to really decipher that just from this video alone, but I think neurologically it's so important to understand when to implement exercise and whether it's beneficial or not. And that's what we're sort of going to get into a separate video, so I'm going off on a tangent now and it's ridiculous. So yeah, I know this isn't a very like informative video in terms of like, I don't know, factual information. Well, it is fact, but like, you know, like learning maybe, I don't know. But I just wanted to sort of pinpoint things that I didn't have or weren't as effective in recovery for me, and just kind of getting discussion open, because I feel like this is sort of the starting points that we need to be at. You need to understand where I've come from on my journey, my experiences, for me to be able to kind of give out where I am currently and what I'm like right now, and how all of this has influenced my mindset today, and why and what I want to be doing. Ow, just hit my finger, probably broken. So I hope this is informative, and I hope that we do have an open discussion about this, and you guys can comment below in terms of like things in treatment that either we could be discussing. I can make another video in terms of a topic area, and my opinion on it, and also other people's opinions on it, and also your experiences. I think it's so super important. This is basically essentially getting knowledge and understanding out there and deciphering. I keep saying that word, I don't even think it makes sense. Depicting what are the best qualities in recovery and areas for massive improvement. Again, this is very generic, very informal, but it may be relatable to some of you guys, and but also understanding that even though throughout all of that, like, I am where I am today, and I'm still alive, thankfully, and so there's other things like that will get you through this. And so if you're in treatment, or if you've come from treatment, or you've just come out of treatment, anything like that, and you feel like you've had a similar experience, or you feel like there is no hope, trust me, there is hope, and this is what we're going to get better at and sort out and hopefully make better, so that people don't feel like that afterwards and feel like they've got an avenue to go down, and that they will recover, or at least be able to manage their illness better. I think I've been very open about this from the beginning, and in my other videos I have said that I have fully accepted that I will always have part of my eating disorder like in me. I feel like it's not going to go away fully. I feel like I will always live with my eating disorder, and I know, like I said, I've fully accepted that, but it's how much I let it affect my life. And I still have good days and bad days, as I will always reiterate, but that doesn't mean to say that there is no hope left. Like, I've been able to do things like beyond anything that I ever thought possible when I was in that space, and there is still like massive hope for all you guys, and you've got so much to achieve, and it's going to be such a good life for you, even if it is just like managing it. You'll soon come to a point where like it doesn't affect you as much, and it's going to be such a lovely point for you. And just keep going, because you're doing so well, and there's still so much more to do and to conquer. So I hope that this does give you some hope, even if you look at me and just like, well, look at you, what are you doing? Well, I'm doing it, and I'm in a lot better mindset than I was back then. So just don't feel like there is no hope left, because I will make hope for you, and there will be some hope left, and we will get through it together, and we will continue to get through it together for the remainder of our days. So yeah, I hope you all have a lovely weekend. This probably isn't going to go up on the weekend, I'm not going to lie to you, so I hope you have a lovely week or weekend, because I'm a bit inconsistent at the moment, but that is okay. Sort my shit out and that's what I'm going to do. But I'm going to head off, because I've literally been talking for like ages, and I thought this was going to be shorter than it is, and I've made an absolute mockery of it, and I may probably have to re-record it, because I've just messed up everything about it, but it's fine. It's up there, content's up there, and that's what it is. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and hit the subscribe and the like button because it really supports this channel and what we're all about. So if you'd like to watch me fumble over my words all the time, possibly do some fun things here and there. Can't say I have the most exciting life at the moment, but we'll get there. And yeah, comment below if you want to see anything specific, or if you're just like, Charlotte, shut your camera off and go to bed because you're not helping. I really hope that's not the case, but we can't please everyone. But I will see you in another video that may or may not bring anything. Bye! I'm not ending it like that. I can't think of endings. Can someone just do it for me?